Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is wonderful to have you here. On behalf of the University Place Super Neighborhood, the Museum Park Super Neighborhood, and Congregation Emanu, I want to welcome you to tonight's Mayoral Candidate Forum. I am Josh Fixler. I am one of the rabbis here. If you've never visited our synagogue before, we are thrilled to have you. A few quick logistical notes. Restrooms can be found by exiting the chapel through the back and turning right at the gallery. And in case of an emergency, please listen for announcements from our security team and note that there are exits in front of you to the right and behind you to the left. If you have questions, please look for anyone with an Emanu name tag. We're happy to help. I want to introduce you to the hosts of this evening's program. Let's welcome Eric Erickson, President of University Place Super Neighborhood, and Kathleen O'Reilly, President of the Museum Park Super Neighborhood. Our super neighborhoods cover congregations of many faiths and 18 museums. We cover Herman Park, the Miller Theater, the Houston Zoo, and the first integrated golf course in Houston at Herman Park, all of which have celebrated diversity from their founding. We are home to the exceptional Rice University and several of Houston's most historic and architecturally significant neighborhoods. And all of this is made even more beautiful by our unique urban forest, one of our city's key civic assets. There are few places in the United States with such a dense and outstanding collection of cultural, educational, religious, and natural resources. We appreciate the candidates for listening to the concerns of our community and thank our neighbors for their participation. We are glad you're here. I do want to make a quick note that Senator Whitmire had confirmed that he was going to join us this evening and then was called to Austin this morning by the governor to do some work. He had hoped to make it back, and I've just been informed that he will be unable to join us this evening. And now let me introduce you to our moderator for the evening, Miya Shay. Miya is an Emmy award-winning journalist for ABC 13. You will find her out and about in Houston daily, covering whatever may be breaking at any moment. She has covered a number of elected officials in every mayoral race in the past 20 years. That includes traveling to China with Mayor Bill White and Brazil, Korea, and Japan with Mayor Annise Parker. Miya has moderated a number of mayoral forums over the years, but she is certain that this will be the best one yet, I'm told. We thank you for moderating tonight, and I'll hand it over to you to get us started.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi. It's great to be with all of you tonight. I'm so excited to be here, not the least of which because it's, nice and air conditioned and I'm not standing outside in the heat doing a live shot right this second. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you tonight as I throw away my a little too much excitement and welcome our esteemed and illustrious mayoral candidates. We're going to start my left, and as I introduce him, I'm told, attorney and the only left-handed candidate here today, Lee Kaplan. Former Metro Board Chair and very successful businessman right here in Houston, Mr. Gilbert Garcia. Representing the 18th Congressional District, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. And the Houston District I Council Member, Mr. Robert Gallegos, right here, Councilmember Gallegos. All right, so the rules here given by our organizers tonight, I want to thank them for doing such a good job getting things organized and really focusing on issues that's important to this community. There are lots of mayoral forums throughout this election season, campaign season, and I think they're so vitally important for every community to have an opportunity to have these forums, because you get a chance to ask questions that are important to your community, and we're a big city, and every community's issues are different. So looking at the questions tonight, it's really nice to see they're really structured toward the interests and things that impact the folks who are here tonight, which is wonderful. Now, all of tonight's candidates will be asked the same questions and be given the same amount of time. There'll be questions that allow 2-minute answers and one that allows a 1-minute answer, and some yes or no questions as well. To keep the forum to 90 minutes, to be fair to all candidates, it will be necessary to keep answers within that time frame to the best of our abilities. We ask that yes or no questions be answered with a yes or no answer without added explanation or condition. Nat Treadway, Nat, yes, he will be serving as our timekeeper. He has a tough job. He'll be sitting up front and will hold up signs to let the candidates know where they are time-wise. So all eyes are on you, Nat. All right, so let the questions begin. We will try to keep this, we will try to make it where we will rotate so every candidate gets a chance to answer the questions first, second, and keep it fair as possible. All right. First question, serious questions, are based on infrastructure. And the first question is, our 100-year-old streets, water lines, and other utilities contribute to flooding, cause profound water losses, and are far below traffic standards. In Museum Park and University Place alone, residential streets host 8 to 12 million visitors a year, and in many cases, these are the original streets built in the 1900s. How do you plan to rebuild these aging streets, water lines, and other critical infrastructure? And Mr. Kaplan will give you the first chance to answer. You have 2 minutes.
Well, I need to make sure this works. Can everybody hear me? Okay. The first thing is we need to use the drainage bond money the way it was promised to be used, not the way the referendum allows them to be used, that is for the drainage fees. The administration had too much wiggle room, and instead of really repairing drainage, which put us on a path of making real progress, we've been using to repair potholes. So that's the first thing. We simply have to be honest with the voters that we will have to tear up streets to get underneath them to fix infrastructure. The second thing is, sooner or later, we're going to be faced with a money crisis. And people don't like the idea of higher taxes, but after 2 years of performance, I think it'll be fair to tell the voters whether or not we need to lift the revenue cap. That's just an inevitable fact that nobody wants to face, and I don't believe there's more money coming from the state or the federal government. We have money that they've given us already, but that will run out. The city has spent half of essentially what I call the Biden money, for which we're very grateful, but candor is what's necessary. False promises will not make it. And I should add, we will probably start with the worst streets. They're not on the far west side. They're not in the wealthier neighborhoods. They're in the east side. And that's a part of town that's been neglected. The east side, Sunnyside, those are areas that have to be addressed first. We are not going to let people of lesser means be victimized by political issues and who gives the most money to campaigns.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia, same question.
Thank you. Can y'all hear me too? Okay. My name is Gilbert Garcia. Thank you for having me here today, and thank you for letting us be in this wonderful place. I want to just recognize Dean Mark Ryan, because when I was at Yale, I'm not so sure I would have gotten through Yale without his support here in the front row. Being a Latino going all the way across the country, it was quite a shock, and he was there for all of us. So thank you, Dean Ryan, for all of that. I'm your neighbor. I live in Braeswood Place, and I have raised my 4 children, my wife and I understand the frustration that you have, because I live it too. And I know we talked a little bit about water, etc. You know, what's interesting is I'm living that right now. Here we are in this drought, in this difficult time, and my neighbor right across the street is leaking water through the water source, and it's going all through our street. It's been doing that for a week and a half. And it's hard to believe, right, in this environment. And she just got a case number. So what does it all mean? I think it means that there's really needs to be a very strong tone at the top set by the mayor, whoever the mayor may be and whoever you vote for. We need to set a strong tone at the top to bring greater competence to City Hall. Because I really think that's the root of a lot of the issues that we have. We'll talk more about some of those things and some of the questions, but it really boils down to having greater competence and greater accountability. That's what I do at my firm, where we took a $200 million firm, and now we're roughly $21 billion. That's what I've done at Metro when I was chairman. We took an agency that was troubled, couldn't pay its bills, and we brought transparency. We got the full funding grant agreement. We redid the bus system. All of those things got transparency awards and even got Transit Agency of the Year for all of North America in 2015. It takes a strong tone at the top, and that's what I would do.
Thank you. Congresswoman Jackson-Lee.
Thank you so very much. And to Kathy, it was good to see you. She reminded me that I have done work in this area for a very long time. My district used to come close up to this area down Richmond. I'm delighted to be in the district of Councilmember Kamen, who has done an excellent job. Yep. And so you don't let a problem overcome you. This is really a destination site. I talk about Houston being a destination city. This is a destination area. It has Rice University. It has many different assets, beautiful trees. And so you use the resources collaboratively. Don't give up on the federal government. The infrastructure dollars are going to be on the ground until 2025. A smart mayor can get in there and describe this as a particular transit destination area. It can also classify it as streets over 100 years old. Focus on using city dollars. The state owes us dollars as well, and begin to do a plan. I'm a listener. Listen to the civic and super neighborhood as to where best to be able to build that infrastructure. The consent decrees dealing with dumping and dealing with water are all under the federal government. I know how to work with them, but as well, I know where the problems are. And so what I would be doing is, one, describe this in a unique way. Transportation dollars can come to places that have a unique definition. I would take those definitions to use for grant dollars to add to CIP dollars that may come, working with council members that may come. When you describe areas as unique, we're willing to work with it, not to depriving other neighborhoods. No, we wouldn't do that. But we know that resources come out of Rice University, the trees, the restaurants, and then you know that fixing it generates revenue. So again, I never look pessimistically at the possibility of change and improvement, and I see the possibility here using a multitude of resources. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Councilmember Gallegos.
First of all, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Emanu, for hosting this event tonight. And again, thank you, Councilmember Kamen. Honored to work with her on City Council. In regards to our flooding issues that we have, the City of Houston with Rebuild Houston Forward, the former Rebuild Houston, where we have a drainage fee, which went into effect back in 2011. And we've already spent over $500 million in infrastructure improvements. But what we are doing is trying to pay off our debt in regards to before we had passed Rebuild Houston, we were actually having to take out bond money to do our infrastructure improvements. So it's taken a little while for us to pay off our bonds that we have outstanding. But they're starting to see where now we're able to use this drainage fee to do infrastructure improvements. I know it was in the Chronicle recently where the city has lost over 30 billion gallons of water. So that's about a revenue of $150 million that we could have collected on water bills, for example. So we have to focus on repairing the broken pipes. I represent District I, which is the oldest infrastructure part of the city on the east end. And we have 35 miles of water pipes that need to be replaced. And I understand District H is second and District C is third. So these are things that we have to address, and we are addressing those with our drainage fees. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next question. The last two administrations have stressed that the city can only barely maintain our infrastructure unless the revenue cap is lifted. Do you support lifting the revenue cap to better support our infrastructure? And how soon would you take that on? Like, what's your process to actually make that happen? And we'll start with Mr. Garcia, if you would answer that first.
Thank you. First, to be clear, we don't have a revenue cap. What we have is a cap on our property tax revenue. It's very, very different. And if you look over time, the revenue taxes that we've been raising has been pretty constant, around 30 to 32% of our budget. So essentially, that isn't the problem at all. What really is the issue is we have an expense problem here in the city. If you look from roughly 2006 to now, the revenues increased about 85%. That's pretty healthy. The population has only grown about 10. So the question becomes, where is the money going and what are we doing with it? I would not support raising the the tax cap until at least we get our fiscal affairs in order. What does that mean? Quite simply, it's another question of competency. If you look, the housing director said it was a culture of corruption in City Hall. It was in the paper. I don't know if it is or isn't. He was fired the next day. The housing department was then investigated. It's being investigated right now by the DA. If you look, the health department where the COVID money came through was raided by the FBI. These things are not normal. Where is that money going and what's happening? I'm not suggesting there's malfeasance, but what I am saying is I want to call for an audit immediately of those two departments. It's on my pledge of what I would do for the first 100 days, are all right out there for everyone to see. I want it audited because the taxpayers have to have confidence that their money is being used wisely and that there's no malfeasance. And if there is, we need to get it out. And if it isn't, well, that's great. But let's get better efficiencies and get better competency into government as a whole. I would set a very strong tone at the top. I would seek the audits immediately by either the city controller or by the Office of Inspector General. Thank you.
Thank you. Congresswoman, the revenue cap, and what would you do about it? Oh, no, yeah, we're going this way. We're going this way. I apologize. Congresswoman Jackson Lee.
With your fellow members of council. Right now, we have a budget that will last us until June of 2024. The mayor will have been in for 6 months. We are told that our fund balance are higher than they've ever been, which will take us into 2025, which gives us some flexibility along with the federal funds dealing with infrastructure and a number of other issues, the environment. I think a city of this size should look at both revenue and expenses. With my city council, with my finance director, with the city controller, of which I will not be at odds with because we are running the city together, we will craft what will be the best direction. Increasing the property tax, obviously the voters and others will be of concern. We realize that there are senior citizens, but I will look to increase dollars because I want to create a livable city. I want a budget that speaks to the future of Houston, and that includes improvements in Houston, street improvements. And I didn't mention before, I'm a strong supporter of mobility, and I am certainly recognize that in some instances, Metro has been part of doing street repair. They are not precluded from doing that. And so all of those different assets can be brought to bear on trying to make a difference on the revenue that we bring in as we watch the expenses. The difficulty will come in the FY 2026 budget. By that time, I will be well experienced, give you a darn good budget, and you'll be tapping and popping all over this city because things will be repaired and cities and neighborhoods will be better. But give us a chance to do the analysis and then come back and be able to say what we can get together collectively as the city, the mayor, and the council.
Councilmember Gallegos, would you lift the revenue cap? If so, how would you do it?
Thank you. Yes, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is correct. I mean, right now the city has been able to continue to operate due to the fact that we have ARPA money that we were using, but that's coming to an end. So as the next mayor, what I will do is work with the finance director and our controller So that way we can try to educate the voter, because it's going to be up to the voter to decide if they want to get rid of the revenue cap. I, as the next mayor, I'm just going to be the leader to try to convince the voters the importance of getting rid of the revenue cap. Since 2015, when the revenue cap went into effect, the city has failed, has not, and been unable to collect $1.8 billion. That's $1.8 billion. And that's why I stated earlier that our water pipes, in regards to many of our districts, we've lost over 30 billion gallons of water. Just recently in our city budget, we approved the police budget for the first time, $1 billion. Solid waste, last year their budget was $96 million. We raised it this year to $106 million, but the director has told council, has told the mayor that his budget needs to be at $130 million. Their equipment, their garbage trucks are breaking down, and that's why many of us are not getting our trash picked up on time. So these are things that, as the next mayor, I need to address, but I will work with the finance director and the controller to try to educate the voter. And again, it will be up to the voter to decide if they want to get rid of the revenue cap. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kaplan?
I'm sorry if I'm the confirmed skeptic here. I seem to be the great debunker. The idea that suddenly things will be okay and we'll work it all out is simply not true. We're going to have to be honest with people. All that money from the feds that we got in a big spike will run out. I also don't believe there's a ton of corruption in City Hall. The issue in the housing department was that one of the mayor's partners supported a housing project that others did not. And the head of the housing department, who happened to be a Bill White's son-in-law, was disgusted and spoke out rightfully. I think audits are not particularly useful. We have a district attorney who's willing to indict people. We have a U.S. attorney who's aggressive. Let's not spend our money on looking good stuff. Let's actually do what really matters. First of all, as I said, let's use the drainage fee money to improve our water systems in both directions, drainage and bringing water to people. That's critical. That will give us some running room. But the idea that if we just make it for 2 more years, everything will be okay, that's just not true. That's a fantasy. It won't happen. So we have to make the hard choices. The hard choices will mean losing some programs so that we do what we have to do. Public safety, infrastructure, picking up the garbage, and permitting. If we have a better permitting department, we'll have more housing. If people enjoy living here, the word will get out and we'll attract more people, which is a lot better than offering tax incentives to corporations for unverifiable promises of more jobs. All that does is mean that they get a tax break, we erode our tax base, and we may or may not get some more jobs. The city has to be perceived as having a mayor who really will address the problems, be honest about them, and you can't promise to fix them, but you address them and do better. That's how we get more people here.
Thank you so much. The next question. The city seems to be doing not enough, a little, about flooding, with the planning department as cross purposes by requiring wider sidewalks, changing setback requirements, and reducing green space, all resulting, it seems like, in more concrete and less permeable surface. How can the city do better to reduce flooding? I guess more specifically, what would you do as mayor to implement these processes so we do better, because we'll flood again? And we'll start with you, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee.
Well, let me say that the large amount of money that was a bridge for the city, called the American Rescue Act and previously the CARES Act, will come to an end in 2025. But that doesn't mean the mayor is going to sit on her laurels waiting for that to end. What I'm saying is that it carries you through 2024 and the FY 2025, which gives you the opportunity to creatively look at how you can increase revenue and how you address expenses for the needs of the city. It means whether we need garbage trucks, whether we need better sidewalks, whether we need a better health department, whether we need to deal with flooding. Flooding is not a singular entity. Flooding is part of Harris County. Harris County Flood District. Who better has worked with the Harris County Flood District directly than Sheila Jackson Lee? Because I provided them with major dollars to work on every bayou that has been in this city. In addition, the Army Corps of Engineers. I wrote legislation and money for the Army Corps of Engineers to study how the waters flow in this community. I will come with knowledge. And then, of course, the Planning Commission has to be in sync with reality. Wide streets and other elements that create nowhere for the flood waters to go. We got a flood approaching, or a major hurricane approaching Florida. This is going to be an active hurricane season. Get ready. And who we'll be calling on will be the federal government, and I'll push as much dollars as I can here. But Planning Commission has to work with Army Corps of Engineers, Harris County Flood District, the Mayor's Office, to begin to do more sensible planning of how you have a design so that you do not create a problem. But certainly, we will not have a closed door to the Harris County Flood District and their knowledge, or to the Army Corps of Engineers and their knowledge, and working with the Planning Commission to help them guide them into a more effective way of design that is both attractive but yet does not cause flooding problems. I'll be on top of it because I know the players. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gallegos.
As the next mayor, I will be working, of course, with the county judge, the county commissioners, in order to work with flood control, because Houston's not the only city in Harris County that floods. I mean, it's other cities in Harris County, as well as unincorporated areas of Harris County. So we need to work together, and we need to be smart about working together to make sure that we try to prevent future flooding. I know the city of Houston, we started with the SWAT program. It's a Stormwater Action Team. It's Director Costello, former council member Costello, leads it. And basically how that works is that we have 11 council districts, and we know our districts better than anyone else. So we know where the drainage ditches are. We know the drainage ditches that need to be cleaned out because they're overgrown. They have shopping carts, they have tires, they have whatever you can even think of is in those drainage ditches. And the SWAT program, basically, we let the SWAT team know these are the drainage ditches we want you to concentrate on. It was $1 million for each district, so it's $11 million. But just recently, the mayor approved an extra $1 million for each council district, so now we have $2 million to work with, and that has been a big, big help in regards to my district, where we are targeting drainage ditches and cleaning them out to make sure when there is a heavy rain that the water will be able to flow a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kaplan?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what I've heard that's new. The people who do these things right now, they're not fools. They're not drones. They try very hard.
Could you use the mic, please?
Oh. The people who work on this right now understand these problems. The truth is, we don't have enough people, and we don't have enough people because of inflation and our budget issues. And so people who say we're going to work smarter, I don't disagree with that. But the idea that we will overcome human frailty and our uncertainty about the future by saying we're going to work smarter, I don't know that that's going to happen. And so we have to be honest. We have a money problem. We really do. Inflation has eaten away at a lot of the city's capabilities, and COVID ate away at a lot of the workforce, many of whom left. So let's be candid about what we have to do. We will cut some programs. They will not be public safety, infrastructure, permitting, or garbage pickup. Somehow I feel like the great debunker. That's not my goal. I'm pretty optimistic about inspiring people and leading people. But you really have to appoint people who are inspired as department heads. The mayor's biggest job is to pick the right people to run the departments and have them inspire people to work hard and smart. But the idea that that will solve our problems is simply not true. We have a money problem, not because people are stealing from the city. We caught one guy who took $13,000 to reclassify a bar as a restaurant. That's been it. If there are tons of fraud, throughout the city, we would know more about it because we have aggressive prosecutors. We just need people to be honest about what we can do as a city. And honesty is the start to building trust so that the voters ultimately will approve a revenue cap release.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia? Yes, same question, talking about, flooding.
I could talk about it again. I could talk about it again. First of all, let me just say, Councilman, we all know each other. So you got to have fun with each other sometimes. I can't imagine Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee ever sitting on her laurels for anything at any time. So let me say that, Congresswoman. And Councilman Gallegos, let me just say that part of those 30 billion gallons are in my street right now. And I keep seeing it every time I go in and out. And my dear friend Lee Kaplan, I don't know what's there or isn't there, but I know one thing. As a question of competence, as mayor, I want to be sure there's nothing there. I'm not going to wait for the FBI to bring out the report. I'm not going to wait for the DA. I don't know how much other bribery things there were. We don't know. And I'm not suggesting there is or isn't. But I'll give you another example, again, of competency. The airport procurement contract, which is a very large contract, was done 4 times to get a certain outcome. 4 times. That's not normal. As someone who was chairman of Metro, I've done big procurements. Doing a procurement 4 times is just not normal. I'm not suggesting there's pay to play. Many people suggest to me it's pay to play system. I just don't know. But I know one thing, if I were mayor, I would look at, in addition to auditing those things that I mentioned already, and they're on my pledge, I would do a complete evaluation of the entire procurement process so people can be sure that their tax dollars are being spent wisely, and so businesses, small businesses, women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and the like, have an opportunity to compete. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next question. Trees mitigate heat islands and air and water pollution and help manage stormwater. But the city is behind its goal to plant 4.6 million trees by 2020, as set out in the by 2030, I should say, as set out in the 2020 Climate Action and Resilient Houston plans. I would also say you should water your trees. That's what all the gardening experts told me this week. I know we're on 2 days, on streets restrictions, but they always tell me that. All right, what would you do to accelerate tree planting and ensure that new trees thrive? Tree question. Councilmember Guy, you.
First of all, I would work with the Parks Department in regards to making sure that we also work with Trees for Houston, with Barry Ward with Trees for Houston. I know that I've worked with him for the Gus Wortham Golf Course to plant trees at Gus Wortham Golf Course after we refurbished Gus Wortham Golf Course. I also worked with him to plant trees at the Botanic Garden, which was the former Glenbrook Golf Course. So we need to work with Trees for Houston. But I know Mr. Kaplan doesn't like to hear that we need to be smart about it, but we don't want to plant trees in the summertime or right now when we have water conservation here in the city of Houston. So we need to make sure that these trees are planted in the fall. And hopefully we won't have any water conservation at that time. So in other words, again, as mayor, I will be working with the Parks Department and our Forestry Department to make sure that we do plant these trees and we do plant them at the right time to make sure that they do get watered. Thank you.
Thank you. I should mention this is a 1-minute answer question, so thank you so much. Mr. Kaplan.
Nobody said anything
Mike.
Mike, yeah. About the private sector. Look, we can go to the Exxon Mobils of the world, but we ought to also go to all the smaller employers of the city. People will plant trees. Everybody likes trees. I remember as a child at this synagogue, we were always giving $2 to buy a tree in Israel. Everybody in Houston believes in trees. We have heat islands, and the worst ones I know are on the east side because my campaign headquarters is in Edo on Canal Street. But we need to have every company that employs 10 or more people be encouraged to plant trees. All I've done in my life is represent the private sector, from indigents to large corporations. And those are people, many of them at retirement age, executives, who want to be asked to do something. And if we do that, we'll have more trees. The city can't buy every tree that we need.
Thank you so much. Mr. Garcia, I apologize.
The other Gallegos. So I'm going to be very similar to Lee, which is, first and foremost, the plan is about becoming carbon neutral by 2050. I think that's a worthy goal. I think we can achieve it. We're going to have to do our part. But the concept of the city, given its financial situation, and I'm not trying to be a downer, but realistically, I just don't see the city being able to purchase, buy, and plant very many trees. I just don't see that happening. I think there are other priorities that are urgent, whether it's public safety, among many others. And ultimately, I think the adopt-a-tree programs and trying to partner with the private sector is the way that we're going to have to go. And I think if there's ever a time to do it, I'm not an arborist or anything like that, but at the end of the day, I think that if there's ever a time to get people's attention, to get involved with buying and planting trees, it's now. Because not only is our grass dying, but our trees are starting to die as well. So I don't mean to be another bearer of bad news, but I see the same thing that my colleague here sees too.
Congresswoman Jackson Lee.
I'm just going to maintain the high level of optimism in this room. First of all, I'm a tree hugger. I'm a tree hugger. I love trees. The canopy over here is absolutely magnificent. Set the goal as a mayor and find the collaborators. My good friend from Houston Community College is here, but Rice is here. Give that target to our students, and I will be out there planting trees along with public-private partnerships. Let me be very clear. Every new mayor is going to put forward the best level of directors, the top-notch legal department. I'm a lawyer. I love practicing law, served on the Judiciary Committee for 28 years. I know the law. I know how to oversight over cabinets, departments. I will know how to oversight over my fellow directors who are doing their job if they're not doing it, but I believe in city employees because they're committed to public service. But trees will have a high priority, and we will get them planted. Public-private partnerships and federal agricultural dollars, as well as dollars from transportation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As a personal plant enthusiast, I just want to recommend native trees and native ground cover. Tear up your grass. And you can do that even with an HOA. There's a state law you can put down ground cover. Frog fruit is my favorite. Not that anybody has, I just thought I'd contribute. All right, next we have a series of yes or no questions. So these are always fun. It's like lightning round, but then we go back to some longer form questions at the end. So it's not like the long answers are over. We're just like moving on to a different section right now. Yes or no questions. This question is, Galveston Area Council, or HGAC, plays a substantial role in prioritizing federal and state funds for local projects. But Houston, with about 30% of the region's population, holds only 2 of HGAC's 37 board positions. One result, last year, HGAC board voted to send just 2% of the region's $488 million in federal flood funds to our city. Will you support increasing Houston's representation? Will you sign a petition to that effect, yes or no? We'll start with Mr. Kaplan.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Garcia.
Yes, and I'm one of their largest donors.
Congresswoman Jackson Lee.
Yes.
And Mr. Gallegos.
Yes, and voted on city council so it could be placed on the ballot.
All right, next yes or no question. Houstonians have spent 40 years getting rid of billboard blight, but the current administration has suggested allowing 50 to 60-foot digital lighted billboards along freeways. Do you support allowing such billboards on Houston freeways, yes or no? Mr. Garcia.
No.
Congresswoman Jackson Lee.
No.
Councilmember Gallegos.
The way the question was worded, no.
Mr.
Yes.
Kaplan.
Yes.
Okay. In 2017, the legislature gave carte blanche rights to telecom companies to install towers and other equipments in ROW, stripping away stripping away most city authority to regulate them, and also capping city permit fees, costing millions in lost revenue. What, the legislature doing something? Okay, that never happens. The city, along with other Texas cities, has filed a lawsuit against the state to challenge that law. Will you continue to work to regain the power to protect our communities from this blight? And we'll start with Congresswoman Jackson Lee. Yes or no?
I would continue the lawsuit, yes.
Councilmember Gallegos.
Yes.
Mr. Kaplan.
Yes.
And Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Okay. All right, just zipping along here. Next question. Many Houston neighborhoods are experiencing real problems caused by nearby short-term rental properties like Airbnbs. But Houston has no short-term rental regulations. Would you regulate short-term rentals to protect Houston neighborhoods and their quality of life? Yes or no? And we'll start with Mr. Gallegos.
Yes.
Mr. Kaplan.
Yes.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Congresswoman Jackson Lee.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Next we have the University Corridor Bus Rapid Transit, BRT project, will significantly impact traffic in nearby areas along Richmond Avenue, bringing cut-through traffic to neighborhoods and permanently closing many north-south streets. Do you support the University Corridor BRT project as currently designed? Yes or no? Mr. Kaplan.
No.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Congresswoman Jackson Lee.
No.
Councilmember Gallegos.
Yes.
All right. There is a buzz in the room. Now we're getting exciting. Yes. Bzz, bzz, bzz. I like it. I like it. All right. Next question. The city has accepted for maintenance almost 9.5 miles of alleys, but does little to maintain or rebuild them, even those providing critical access for homeowners, like in nearby Southampton. While the Livable Places Action Committee is recommending more city alleys in future developments, these alleys are sure to be ignored as well. Would you support residents' requests for a maintenance and rehab program for these alleys? And we will start with Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
All right, Congressman Jackson Lee.
With a structure to put in place, yes.
Councilmember Gallegos.
Yes.
And Mr. Kaplan.
A qualified no.
Qualified no. We'll have to learn about that more later. Would you continue, the next question, would you continue the city-county gun buyback program and the One Safe Houston initiative currently in place? Yes or no? And we'll start with Congresswoman Jackson Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Gallegos.
Yes.
Mr. Kaplan?
No.
And Mr. Garcia.
A qualified yes.
That's good, that's good. Are we having a good time? Yes, you can give all you guys a round of applause. I like it. All right, we're off the yes or no questions. Back to 2-minute answers for the next couple of questions. And the next section will be on crime and quality of life. All right, so crime remains a major concern for most Houstonians. What would you do to combat crime and help Houston police officers work more efficiently and more effectively? You have 2 minutes, and we'll start with Councilmember Gallegos.
Well, first of all, let me start off by welcoming Councilmember Shabazz. Thank you for being here. And former Councilmember Boykins, thank you for being here. I'm the chair of Quality of Life. I would like, in regards to crime, I do represent downtown Houston. When I became a council member 10 years ago, I did have a law enforcement summit in downtown Houston. Again, trying to work with different departments. We had the Sheriff's Department represented, we had the Constable's Department represented, we had Metro represented, we had Constable Rosen's office represented. These are all entities that are in downtown Houston. And if they would all help in patrolling downtown Houston, that would relieve some of our downtown team for HPD where they can go and patrol other areas and not just concentrate in downtown Houston. Again, we have 5,400 officers divided amongst 3 shifts, patrolling over 645 square miles in the city of Houston. So again, we need to be smart on how we do this, and we need to work with other entities so that way they can help in regards to patrolling our city. We have constables that are out there patrolling our streets. When I was Civic Club president, it was very frustrating when the HPD representative was there and you had the constable representative there and they were giving us stats, but they didn't know each other's stats because they don't communicate. We need to make sure that those radios do communicate. I will be working with the county judge and the county commissioners to make sure that the constables' radios work with the HPD radios so we can all know what the crime stats are out there and we can all work together to try to solve those. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kaplan?
First of all, there was a study done in 1978 that the mayor had the taxpayers pay for that included recommendations on making the force more effective and more efficient. One of the recommendations is civilianize many of the in-house functions. I asked the controller how many of those recommendations have been followed. He told me virtually none. So the first thing we have to do is get more officers out of the buildings and on the street. Lee Brown is a prophet without honor in his own country. He is the one who came up with the idea, well, he didn't, not here, of civilian, of community policing, and that's valuable. But we have only half as many officers in this city per capita as Chicago and New York, despite having 650 miles to patrol, square miles to patrol. We already have substations all around the city, but it's still too far to go. And I've been told by young officers, including an Eagle Scout from the troop that I've worked with, Troop 212, that they just answer urgent calls. They don't have time to patrol in neighborhoods. So that's the first thing, is civilianize more of the force. Second is more cadet classes. Yes, that'll cost money. It means other programs will get less attention. The third thing that I think we have to do is be honest about that gun buyback. I've asked, and I counted the other day, 31 officers if they thought the gun buyback was of any value, and they said, no, it's one of these feel-good show programs. Nobody turns in a gun that might be used in a crime. Maybe grandma finds a broken gun in a dresser drawer, but somebody buys it back. And the city does not get reimbursed when we divert police officers to do gun buyback programs. That's just silly. It's boneheaded. And I don't care what the mayor says or others, it's not a good idea. We need to use the police more efficiently.
Mr. Garcia?
Well, a lot of our answers might sound similar, because we all know that crime is the #1 issue that we all feel, because nobody feels safe. People don't even feel safe in the Galleria anymore. People just don't feel safe. There's perception and there's reality. Part of it is to improve the perception. That's why if you look at my pledge, I've been one of the first to come out with, we need to expand our community policing. Why? Because the firefighter model has fire stations spread out throughout the city. They've already learned that the fastest way to get to a fire is to have them dispersed throughout the city to get to the fire. Well, we should have the same thing with the police force, which is dispersed throughout the city as much as possible in either quadrants or more community policing so they can get to crime faster. It also is a deterrent because of the visual of having police in either shopping centers or other areas. It just means smart policing, in my view. Second of all, I do think that we need to focus on better lighting. Some of the areas that are the most high crime areas are some of the areas that have the poorest lighting. I know that sounds silly. We think, well, it's just lighting. But again, it's all about a deterrent. And a deterrent of lighting is a very good deterrent. Number 3, I agree with Lee, which is we need to get more civilians hired by the police force. Maybe he didn't say that part, but at the end of the day, we both agree that we need to get more civilians doing civilian jobs and the police officers that are doing civilian jobs doing police work. So I would look to bring in more civilians, and that's what I hear from some of the senior officers that we have in the city, that there's a lot of police officers that are doing civilian work. And at this time, at this stage, we just can't afford to do that anymore. Thank you.
Congresswoman Jackson Lee.
Visibility. The gun buyback program, the community likes it. Thousands show up. It's only once every 6 months. Some guns come off the street. More cadet classes, you're going to hear us all say that. Funding has to be to open that up. At the same time, I have a different concept, came under Lee Brown, neighborhood storefronts. I'd like to bring them back. That's part of visibility. I also believe that the increased lighting is very important. The city is very dark. In addition, I've worked with Chief Finner, and the federal funds, my friends, is not limited to the American Rescue Act. We give out appropriations every single year, and I can assure you that New York and California get their share of law enforcement dollars. As your mayor, who knows the federal government the most and the best, I know how to get those additional federal dollars. But at the same time, use the ATF, use the FBI. The ATF, the FBI, the U.S. Marshal, they helped get this violent criminal off the street that shot the Deputy Sheriff Anderson. In addition, my process of targeting high crime areas with visibility works. They just did that for Midtown, and they've had major success by visibility and targeting the crime in that area by arrest to ensure that area was cleaned up. Do it in other high crime areas. Make sure the downtown is safe, but make sure neighborhoods are safe. That helps you. In addition, the chief is going to, in the next couple of days, announce that the police are going to stop chasing misdemeanor crimes. That does not make sense. That will release those guys from chasing to being able to parole and only deal with violent criminals in terms of fighting and finding them and getting them off the street. There are smart ways of policing. There are ways of including the community, the civic clubs. I see they're here. Art Boonin is here from Ireland. I met other civic club presidents. I can say that we can get a handle on crime. I know how to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Bars and clubs in and near residential neighborhoods harm residents with excessive noise and other nuisances. However, HPD does not have enough staff to really treat noise complaints as a high priority. How would you address these noisy bars and clubs? You have 2 minutes, and we start with Mr. Kaplan.
Well, as you pointed out, we don't have enough officers. We can't police communities and patrol communities because we don't have enough. One of the young Eagle Scouts from my troop, who is now a member of the force, said, we only have time to answer urgent crimes. If we slow down in a neighborhood, it's not because we're patrolling, it's because we don't want to run anybody over on the way to answering an urgent call. So I think one thing is the neighborhood associations have to be organized for this. And they have the ability and the wherewithal, and they need to be able to bring nuisance lawsuits. Those are suits brought in the county courts, and the county is responsible for funding those courts. COVID slowed us down to a deadlock, but I think those are unlocking. So we do have regulations. We can enforce them. Nuisance lawsuits are one way to do that, and I would encourage every private citizen who's affected to do that or work through the community association. That's the most important thing we can do. The police can't be at every noise complaint. They just can't, and they shouldn't. There are other more important tasks that they have to fulfill.
Mr. Garcia?
First, I'm going to give you a story about what I've done just as a citizen, because I was learning about being mayor, and being mayor is an extraordinary responsibility. I toured many of the areas. Houston is grand, it's big, it's wonderful, it's beautiful. But one of the super neighborhood leaders right there by Washington Avenue called me and said, you need to come look at Washington Avenue. And I was just a citizen about a year ago, and I went in the daytime and toured it with her, and it looked pretty tame. And I said, well, it looks pretty tame. And she says, you need to come at night. So my wife and I went to her house at 12:30 a.m., and together with her and her husband and another couple, we walked up and down Washington Avenue for 2 hours. It was horrifying. You don't want to do it. It was packed. It was like Bourbon Street. In the middle of the street, people were just, riding very unsafely. There were fights. There were people, excuse my language, using the restroom in the neighbors' yards. There's trash everywhere. It was terrible. And they happened to have a noise meter to show me the noise meter. and gave me, this is what an airplane, this is more than an airplane. And so that's when the city council started the noise ordinance. And I have a radio show, and I was on the radio show many times, had them on my radio show, fighting, organizing, talking about the noise ordinance, talking about everything. And guess what? Thanks to the council members, it passed. It's a wonderful thing. That's being proactive in action. And that's what I would do. Ultimately, it is true. We don't have enough police officers that can go to all these sorts of things. But we can't give up because it's the quality of life that's so important. Whether we start a secondary type of police force or whether we enforce or have greater tickets and writing up more tickets, enforcing them, taking them to court, paying their fines, collecting on the fines. At the end of the day, we cannot give up because it's the neighborhoods that we've got to protect. That's what will bring people back to Houston and get Houston thriving even more than it is.
Thank you. Congresswoman Jackson-Lee.
We know that we live in a big urban center. We know that we have businesses, and we know that we have young people. We know that we are a destination city. We'll be an international city. It means that we're going to have entertainment sectors and areas that may be because of the urban area around neighborhoods. One should not be more equal than the other, and we should not suffer bad actors. I would go after the bad actors who continuously harass, break the laws, and make sure they understand they cannot do business in this city. As it relates to the noise, we have gotten our hands around that noise in the White Oak concert arena, where you absolutely are penalized if you go over a certain amount of noise volume past 10 o'clock. That's a concert area. I know that we don't have all the police we need, but it's also a matter of the mayor's prioritization and working with the chief. And so you can, again, hotspots work. You can go to a certain area and set the pace and say that this will not be tolerated and get it to a point of reasoned response that entertainment, young people, tourists, but our neighbors can live harmoniously. Remember, revenue is driven by the excitement that your city is. This city is a city ready for the future. There will be a lot of opportunities coming to this city, conventions, conventioneers. We want to make the city safe, but we also want to make it livable for our neighbors. And if we make it livable for our neighbors, what we do is enforce the laws and utilize it in a targeting manner to make sure that we say in each area that's a problem, it won't be a problem because we will be there to clean it up and show by example that this city means business and that we can do business together if we just do it right.
Councilmember Gallegos.
At public session, we had quite a few individuals that would come to public session and they were upset. They were asking for help in regards to the bars that were playing their music loud, and unfortunately these individuals were living near these bars. So I want to thank Councilmember Alcorn, Chair of Regulation and Neighborhood Affairs, because she led the charge in regards to bringing it to council to put some extra teeth on the noise ordinance. We do have that in place now, but like many of my colleagues here were stating, we need police officers to actually have the time to go out there and to monitor this. So what we need to do is hire more police officers, which means we need more revenue to hire more police officers, where we come once again in regards to the revenue cap, where $1.8 billion has not been collected since 2015. And that's what we need to do, is hire more police officers, or the Department of Neighborhoods, where we would have inspectors where they would concentrate in doing this, but we would have to hire more inspectors due to the fact that they would be operating in the evenings, at night, early in the morning, and they right now just operate during the daytime. So these are things that we would have to work on, and as the next mayor, that's what I will be working on. Thank you.
Thank you. The fun is not over, but we are on the last scheduled question. So just so you're all aware. All right. We are gathered here tonight in a synagogue. As you entered, you probably noticed a level of security that one might not see at other places of worship. Anti-Semitism is on the rise nationally and in our city, and hate against minority groups and faith communities have also increased in recent years. As mayor, What would you do to help secure religious institutions and to address anti-Semitism as well as other forms of religious intolerance in our city? You have 2 minutes to answer, and we'll start with Mr. Garcia.
I can sympathize and relate to the hurt feelings about anti-Semitism. The first time that I was called, and please excuse me here, a dirty Mexican, I was 6 years old. And that does something to a 6-year-old. And it has stayed with me my whole life. And it hasn't ended, the various racism that I have received and my family has received. And you might think that we reach a point where there might be some success, but at the end of the day, like Lady Gaga says, I was born this way. You know, I'm a Latino. So I can understand and appreciate that. It should never be accepted. It should never be tolerated. And that is why I've been a big supporter of AJC. I've been awarded by them. I'm very active supporting the America's Table. In its own small way, it's about getting different people together, different ethnic groups, different religions, to understand the differences and to learn how to work together as one community. It's a beautiful thing. And it's just the beginning that hopefully will spread throughout the community and spread throughout the land, because at the end of the day, there's really only one race. It's the human race. And we should all work together to build a better country, better home, and a better Houston for all of us. When you look at little kids, they all play together, no matter who they are. It's society that instills with them the differences that they may be. And so this is something very personal to me. I have even felt it in my business life, where we've been told by a big allocator of funds, because we manage money for a living, and we manage about $22 billion. We've been told point blank by people, and we're an MWBE firm, that we would never be allocated money for the sole reason of we didn't have enough white male partners at our firm. That's just not right. And that wasn't 1955, 1965, that was just 4 years ago. I'm Gilbert Garcia, thank you.
Thank you. Congresswoman Jackson Lee. Congresswoman?
As Houstonians, as the mayor of this city, I will not suffer or tolerate anti-Semitism of any kind, at any time, at any day, at any month, at any year. I will just simply not tolerate it. In the backdrop of 3 African Americans being killed on last Saturday because of racism, I know the pain that we feel. I have had a long-standing relationship, happy one. I won the Hannah G. Solomon Award from the American Council of Jewish Women. I participated in the early Black Jewish dialogues here in this city. I'm a member of the Black Jewish Dialogues in the United States Congress. I have worked as a member of the Judiciary and Homeland Security to craft those laws that would protect synagogues and those funding that would protect synagogues. I went to the Tree of Life and sat down with those members of that congregation and listened to their pain. It pierced my heart. I think it is important that we look at ordinances that deal with the prohibition of anti-Semitism, in this prohibition of the horrors of anti-Semitism in this community, using federal laws as well. We must ensure that all people are treated with equality. So you've got to be a battler against it. You've got to set the tone. You've got to inspire the city that it is not tolerated. You've got to make sure that everyone, regardless of their race, color, or creed, is accepted. But in particular, it is crucial that we take a stand against anti-Semitism. As a former advisor and member of the advisory committee of the Holocaust Museum, I know that it's a teaching tool. I think it is very important to allow the Holocaust Museum to be a teaching tool for our students, and encourage them to go to that. Encourage people to go to it as a destination site for families. If they go to the zoo, or they go to our children's museum, go to the Holocaust Museum. Teach your children to be able to believe in equality and respect for someone that is different. You have to set the tone. I will not tolerate it.
All right. Councilmember Gallegos.
Houston is the most diverse city in the United States. And I know that the Tree of Life, where 11 Jews were killed. I'm not Jewish, but I can relate to that. I'm a proud gay Latino man. And Walmart in El Paso, where 49 Latinos were shot just because of the color of their skin. 23 were shot for the color of skin, but in Florida, at Pulse, where 49 individuals were shot and killed just because of who they chose to love. I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk as well. In regards to, at City Council, I voted not once, not twice, but 3 times, saying no in regards to bringing the RNC 2028 convention to the city of Houston. Not because I don't think that the Republican Party should be here, but those that are in the party today with their hateful speeches. And that's why I voted 3 times to not allow the RNC 2028 come to the city of Houston, so that way they could have their hateful speeches in a city facility paid for by taxpayers in the most diverse city in the nation. And I'm proud of that vote.
Mr. Kaplan, go ahead.
As Gilbert pointed out, hate is really a learned response. You don't start that way. You learn to be that way. And the only way people unlearn it is being exposed to others unlike you who merit your admiration. And obviously this is something emotional to me. It is disgusting. And what Lincoln says is, I slay my enemies when I make them my friends. And I think we have to work hard at that all the time, all the time. Speak out when it happens and be examples. That's the best we can do. There will always be people who are sick and mentally ill and deranged in that fashion. And some you can treat, some you can imprison. But hate is a learned response. And we have to teach people early on to unlearn it and stand as an example against it. Doing the right thing in this, as everything else, is a labor-intensive. Speeches help, but it's labor-intensive. Whether we're hiring more cops and helping them, whether we're teaching about hate in the schools, which of course is a responsibility really of the schools, and hopefully our public schools will not be so decimated that they can't do that. But doing the right thing is labor intensive in this as in everything else that we do in this city.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kaplan. Now, this has concluded the question part of our forum tonight, but now we will go to closing statements, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to tell you why they are the best person for the job of mayor for the city of Houston and why they should have your vote. So everybody will have 2 minutes, and we'll start with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee.
Well, first of all, I think this audience is very lucky to be able to see the hearts of all of us that have presented today. Lee, we are your brother and your sister. That's a good thing for the city of Houston. You'll have to make a choice on who can get the job done with the level of expertise, the level of enthusiasm, and with vision. I believe that I'm the mayor for the future of this city, taking Houston into the future. It is obvious that if you're a leader, you're going to make sure that the government is transparent and that whatever is needed to ensure that there is no bad happenings, you will do to make sure that the government is working well. But at the same time, you must have ideas. And as I was thinking about Ashby and how I had worked to fight against the Ashby and would still continue to do so, or how would I have the solution of the Hawk not in the right place for right students? How could it be relocated using public-private partnership? An entertainment center where we would allow production of short films, producers of music, give opportunities for young people to stay. Create a huge tech center so that it's not only Austin where people stop off to relocate. AI is very important. So besides public safety and fighting against crime, getting violent criminals off the street, and infrastructure and climate and health care and reproductive rights that I will be promoting and ensuring, and mental health, I will have a vision to lead this city, to be housing the unhoused, building housing that is compatible with neighborhoods, ensuring that rent is not keeping young people from staying here. And what about recreating buildings downtown for housing and business together? A mayor with vision, a mayor that loves this city,
Thank
a mayor
you.
that's ready to move.
Councilmember Gallegos.
My parents arrived from Mexico back in the 1920s, escaping the Mexican Revolution as teenagers with their families. They met each other in the East End, they got married, they raised 7 children, and I'm the youngest of 7. They instilled in me the importance of giving back to your community. I was president of my civic club, Houston Country Club Place, for 15 years before I became a council member. I was the founder and first president of the Eastwood Lawndale Wayside Super Neighborhood. I'm the chair of quality of life. I'm the vice chair of economic development. I'm the former chair of regulation and neighborhood affairs. I've worked with 2 mayors, Mayor Parker and Mayor Turner. I've been on city council for 10 years. I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish in District I, not just in District I, but benefiting the city of Houston. And you can go to voterobertgallegos.com. Again, that's voterobertgallegos.com. Proud of what we've been able to accomplish for this city. We've done public-private partnerships. We have the Houston Botanic Garden in District I. Didn't cost the city $1, but it's still a green space that belongs to the city of Houston. We were able to refurbish the oldest 18-hole golf course in the city of Houston, Gus Wortham Golf Course. Again, a public-private partnership. It didn't cost the city $1, and it's still the city green space. For the past 10 years as a council member, we either refurbished or purchased over 300 acres of green space in District I that benefits the residents of District I and the city of Houston. I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish. Out of the candidates that are here on stage, I'm the one with the experience for the past 10 years. I have a record, a proud record, and I ask you once again to go to voterobertgallegos.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kaplan.
What I want to say is that doing a good job is labor intensive. It always has been. We can't just make speeches. We have to do the hard work. And that's always been true of me in my career as a student, as a young lawyer at a big firm where I made partner, at a small firm which we founded, 3 lawyers and a secretary, that's now 28 lawyers, 50 people. All the time, we wanted to be known for our competence, for our work ethic, our accountability, and our integrity. And I think integrity is very important, and it shines through in a mayor. This is a leadership position. You're hiring somebody to hire other people, to be good and to inspire them to do good. That's really important. I think truthfulness is really important in a mayor. We've had a lot of speeches. All the people here are capable, but who is really willing to face the voters with the truth? People appreciate that when you tell them something starkly. They may not like it, but they appreciate it. And I do think that living by example is a way to do that. I was lucky. I had good examples from parents, and I've tried to follow through on that. My campaign headquarters is in Edo. It's not near my home, it's in Edo. That's an area that needs a lot of help. Everything east of downtown. And maybe a lot of us don't live there, but we have to recognize that. Everybody needs to share in the city. We cannot afford to exclude anyone. And one way we do that is concentrate on the things that I think are most important, which are public safety, infrastructure, permitting so that younger people and those who have lesser means can buy homes, and finally, picking up the garbage. If we make this a better city to live, people will appreciate it, will attract more people to the city.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm not going to go through the litany of issues because if you want to know what I stand for, whether it's the audits, all the things I've mentioned, I support the HGAC sort of redo. I support if council members want something on the agenda to do it. All of that is on my pledge outside. It's on GarciaForHouston.com. What I want you to know is something about me as a person. And then I'm going to give you my vision for Houston. So me as a person, I grew up in a Latino family. My grandfather's way out of poverty was the Marine Corps. My father's way to the middle class was through real estate. And he instilled in us the quality of getting an education, all those things. I'm a product of public school. And my first big break is I went to Yale. Prior to that, I really had never been outside of Texas, but very few times. It was a brand new experience for me. And I arrived by myself because my parents couldn't afford to fly to tuck me into Yale. And so I arrived at Yale, and there we were. And I really got my eyes opened at Yale. And then I had another big break is I applied for a summer internship that was relatively new that puts minority undergrads on Wall Street. I was placed at Salomon Brothers, the prince of capitalism. And I was the first Hispanic vice president there. I had a wonderful time. And then I was recruited to come back to Texas. And so I came back to Texas in 1990. We raised our family here, again, just next door. We've had 4 kids go through the school systems here. We believe in a faith-based education, which is what we've done. That's our choice, but we support the public schools. I have coached 40 seasons of youth soccer. I've done everything with my kids. I have been the announcer at all the track meets because my father wasn't there for me. He worked all the time, and I wanted to break that mold. My vision of the city is I want to be grander than all the things that we see. I want to be grander than just potholes and all those things and stray animals. I think Houston deserves to be in the same breath as the great cities of the world. Why not? Why shouldn't we be? Why shouldn't we be when people think about New York, London, Paris, Barcelona, Tokyo, they think of Houston? We should strive for that. We should want to be something better than just potholes and all the things that we need. I'm Gilbert Garcia. I want to be mayor.
All right, y'all can give them, all the candidates, a big round of applause. They deserve it, yes. I want to give a big shout out to our folks with University Place Super Neighborhood, Museum Park Super Neighborhood, and Congregation Mayoral. I'm told all those positions are also, you can, run for those as well, but there's not as many candidates as there are for mayor. But we are a little bit ahead of schedule, so if there are any qualified yes or no questions you want to answer, I'm sure you can approach the candidates at the end. And just a recommendation for everyone to please make sure you go vote this fall and drag some young people with you, because I think we need more young people at the polls. Thank you all very much for having us. I really appreciate it.